Raider Nation, let's talk about what really went down during the NFL draft, because some inside information has leaked, and it paints a strong picture of the vision behind the Raiders' moves. According to NFL insider Jeremy Fowler, there was a clear frontrunner on the Raiders' draft board at pick number 6, Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. Among the remaining blue-chip prospects, Vegas viewed Jeanty as a tone-setting force, the kind of player who could reshape the identity of the franchise. This decision raised a few eyebrows around the league. After all, Pete Carroll, now helping steer the ship in Las Vegas, rarely invested in first-round running backs during his long tenure in Seattle. In fact, Rashad Penny in 2018 was the only one. Similarly, general manager John Spytek didn't spend early-round picks on backs during his years with the Buccaneers. But this time was different. Jeanty wasn't just a good prospect. He was their guy. The Raiders believed in him as both a player and a leader, and that belief drove them to take a swing many weren't expecting. And it turns out, they weren't the only ones eyeing him. The Denver Broncos reportedly had their sights set on Jeanty too. Vegas just moved first. The strategy didn't stop there. On day 2, the Raiders made a series of trades, first sending picks 37 and 143 to Miami in exchange for 48, 98, and 135. Then, they flipped pick 48 to Houston, landing 58 and 99. It was a deliberate move designed to stockpile third-round picks, the sweet spot of this draft class. With depth issues across the roster, Spytek and his team recognized the strength of Day 2 talent and made sure to maximize their chances. That approach paid off. Among the selections, wide receiver Jack Beck and cornerback Darren Porter, both expected to compete for starting roles. Offensive linemen Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant may not start right away, but they bring much-needed depth to a unit that desperately needs it. This wasn't a flashy draft. It was a calculated one, built on conviction, adaptability, and a clear understanding of where real value could be found. Now that the draft is in the books, there's one question worth asking. Which of the Raiders' Day 2 and 3 picks will make the biggest impact? From the group of Darren Porter, Jack Beck, Charles Grant, and Caleb Rogers, each brings something valuable to the table. But if you're ranking importance, especially for the upcoming season, Porter may be the name to watch first. As a cornerback with size, speed, and scheme versatility, he could push for a starting role right away. Right behind him is Besh, a wide receiver with the hands and toughness to become a reliable target. Grant and Rogers, both on the offensive line, may take a little more time to develop, but they add depth and competition, which is exactly what the unit needs. What's clear is that every one of these picks fits into a broader plan, one that Raiders GM John Spytek and head coach Pete Carroll executed with precision. Before Day 2 even began, the Raiders released 6 players, likely clearing roster space in anticipation of adding more draft talent. Originally set to make 9 picks, Vegas finished with 11. That wasn't by accident. It was the result of a calculated effort to add bodies, plug gaps, and get younger across the board. And while Ashton Jeanty was always the top priority at pick 6, the rest of the draft strategy shows how much work went on behind the scenes. Here's an interesting wrinkle. The Raiders weren't just making smart picks. They were beating other teams to the punch. Reports suggest Denver had eyes on the same player the Raiders took early. Meanwhile, sources say the Raiders may have snatched Darren Porter, Caleb Rogers, and Charles Grant right out from under the 49ers, who were targeting those players in similar ranges. It all shows one thing. This front office wasn't guessing. They knew who they wanted, and they moved aggressively to make sure those players were wearing silver and black, not the uniforms of their AFC West rivals or conference contenders. Every draft unfolds differently, and mock drafts rarely predict how the board will fall. But when the smoke cleared, the Raiders came away with the guys they believed in, and they didn't wait around to take chances. Let's talk about how much the Raiders' pick of Ashton Jeanty really shook things up in the AFC West. According to NFL insider Jeremy Fowler, the Denver Broncos seriously considered trading up in the first round to draft Jeanty. They made calls to teams in the top 10, hoping to strike a deal, but the asking price was simply too high. On top of that, the Raiders held the number 6 pick, and as a division rival, weren't about to help Denver land a key offensive weapon. That right there, it reinforces how valuable Jeanty is. When a rival is willing to climb the draft board for a running back, it means they see him as a potential game changer, and it makes the Raiders' decision to take him even more satisfying. Not only did they get their guy, but they kept him out of Denver's hands. This move is also part of a bigger trend within the division. The Broncos, Chargers, and Raiders are all making similar plays, building from the trenches and trying to follow a formula that's worked elsewhere. The Eagles, for example, built a powerhouse by dominating the offensive and defensive lines, and now AFC West teams are trying to do the same. Denver is investing in its O-line and defense. The Chargers hired Jim Harbaugh and drafted a physical back like Omarion Hampton, both moves echoing that gritty, run-first identity. Everyone's focused on one goal: beat the Chiefs. And the way to do that? Don't try to outgun Patrick Mahomes. Control the clock, win in the trenches, and play physical football. Now, would it have been worth it for the Raiders to even entertain an offer from Denver? It's a fair question. If they had offered something like 2 future first-round picks, even in 2026 or 2027, you'd have to at least listen. But realistically, that kind of offer for a running back was never coming. Still, gathering intel from a division rival can be valuable in itself. All this shows how carefully the Raiders' leadership has been navigating the offseason. John Spytek is already building a reputation as a forward-thinking GM, the kind of decision-maker who's a step ahead while others are still reacting. Around league circles, he's earning respect for that, and it's showing up in the way Vegas handled this draft. Let's talk about how the Raiders' front office played the pre-draft game and won. Just days before the 2025 NFL Draft, ESPN's Todd McShay went on air and confidently stated the Raiders would not draft Ashton Jeanty with the 6th overall pick. That report raised eyebrows across the league. Was Jeanty rising too fast to make it to number? Aru? Or had Vegas shifted its plans? At the time, several respected voices, including McShay and longtime Raiders, beat writer Vic Tafur, predicted Las Vegas would take Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle. It seemed like the momentum had swung in that direction. But as it turns out, all of it was part of the plan. John Spytek was running a masterclass in misdirection. Whether it was calculated leaks, internal silence, or carefully placed distractions, even Pete Carroll's cryptic draft day social media activity added to the smoke. The Raiders kept everyone guessing. And that's exactly how well-run organizations operate. You don't tip your hand, you don't show your board. You hold your cards until the pick is in. After the dust settled, and Jeanty was the pick at number 6, McShay gave credit where it was due. He acknowledged that Spytek and the Raiders' front office had successfully thrown off the scent, even calling it espionage and tipping his cap publicly. That kind of respect, coming from one of the most visible analysts in the business, says a lot about Spytek's early reputation in league circles. He's being recognized not just for selecting a talented running back, but for outmaneuvering the national media, holding his ground under pressure, and building a culture that values strategy as much as talent. It's a sign the Raiders are becoming more than just aggressive. They're becoming calculated. And in a league defined by parity and precision, that could make all the difference. When a franchise finds the right leader, everything begins to change. The Raiders have found theirs in John Spytek. From calculated draft day moves to the quiet confidence that comes from preparation, Spytek has shown early signs of being the kind of general manager who can reshape the foundation of a team. He doesn't chase headlines, he controls them. And more importantly, he builds in silence until it's time to strike. It's still early, but the message is clear. The Raiders are no longer scrambling to keep up with the rest of the AFC West. They're setting their own course. And with Spytek at the helm, Las Vegas is finally beginning to look like a team with a plan, a purpose, and a future worth believing in.